Hello YouTube. Since this is my first video ever, I figured that was quite fitting. Hello Suze. How are you? Hope everything is well. This presentation is about my passion for Xbox, how hegemony was seen throughout the Xbox Live online community and how it changed it, and how the producers of Xbox go against the ideologies of Xbox. So, let's begin. So it all began when the Xbox was originally released, 2001. It was created by Microsoft, the tech giant, as an attempt to expand their forever growing portfolio. It wasn't until Christmas 2002 that I had received one from my Uncle Steve. We had called him the evil uncle because he was known for giving us those gifts that were just horrible, if you know what I mean. I remember that day changing my life forever, plugging it into the TV and seeing this big, wonderful world of vibrant colors, fun and excitement, and most of all, exploration. However, my experience with Xbox has not all been joy. There's been times of hatred towards the system, where it doesn't work, I don't think it works, I want to throw it out the window, it probably wants to throw me out the window, I've broken game discs, I've broken controllers, I've done it all. Another sad experience that I've had with my Xbox is my dad and him using it as a disciplinary tactic. He used to take away the controllers whenever I wasn't a good child, so I should say that happened quite often. One of the big things about Xbox was the gift that I had received from my mother for completion of another year's school, Halo Combat Evolved. This game had truly taken over my life. It was the first fast action first-person shooter that I had ever played. Although I'd played games like Doom and stuff, they were not nearly as quick as this. I had spent endless hours playing this game, and one of the big significances of this game in the Xbox community is because this is when they first announced Master Chief, who is now a staple in the Xbox community. My passion continued to the Xbox 360, and this is where, in my personal opinion, it exploded. The Xbox 360 was released on November 22nd, 2012. This release was not as good as the original Xbox. Hundreds of thousands of Xboxes suffered from the 3 red rings of death. Many of my friends had suffered from this problem, and I just want to say that I was very fortunate, and I never ever dealt with this problem, even though I had one of the very first Xboxes. Microsoft and Xbox took swift action in trying to replace everyone's Xbox who suffered from the 3 rings of death. However, the damage was done, and the 3 red rings of death will now forever be a joke in the gaming community whenever something breaks. Even today, we still see this problem that affects the early generations of Xboxes. I had received my Xbox on December 24th, Christmas Eve day. After my mother and I had heard about the Xbox 360 shipment coming in to Best Buy at the morning. This would not be a normal midnight release. It would be a midnight release where instead of opening up at 12 o'clock like normal most retailers, it would be opening up at 8 a.m. the next day. So instead of waiting till 12, you'd be waiting till 8 a.m. the next day, which is a long time. At first, we made jokes about going, even passing by at 5 p.m. to see people lining up. At approximately 11, we had decided to take a shot at it, and we left at 2:45. The excitement kept me up all night with no sleep, and we were off. We had arrived at Best Buy at 3 a.m., and we were numbered 8. It is important to note that although this wasn't a real midnight release, it played severe importance in my life because it was the first time that I would ever wait outside to buy a game. Now I go to many Xbox releases, including GTA 5, Battlefield 3, Call of Duty Black Ops, Call of Duty Ghost, you name it, I've seen it. I don't know if I'm proud, but it's okay. My passion still continues today. With the recent release of the Xbox One, I was very fortunate to get one. My girlfriend had purchased it to me as a Christmas present. However, I had to do all the waiting, and after seeing the price tag, there was no way that I would ever let anyone spend that much money on me. So I gladly gave her some money. For special reasons, I didn't want to pre-order it. I wanted one on the day it came out, and often when pre-orders, you're put on a list. Waiting in line was my best chance to get one, and that's exactly what I did. If you observe the pictures in the PowerPoint, you can see how dedicated I am. I had arrived at 5 p.m. in the freezing cold, and I had waited till 12. That's 7 hours in the freezing rain. It was cold. Very, very, very cold. I actually had to stuff my pants and my shoes and my pants to stay warm. We all had covered up plastic bags. We were covered in plastic bags because the rain was making us so cold. But luckily, I had a cool mom beside me who let me go and come as I pleased. She didn't move for 9 hours, which kind of scared me, but that's beside the fact. My girlfriend, my lovely girlfriend, ended up coming at 11 for the last hour, which we in the gamer community, sorry I tried to get you, we in the gamer community called the glory hour, because you just come for the sparkles and the everything. You don't deal with the pain of actually sitting there in the freezing cold like I did, but it's beside the fact. Her and I were fortunate enough to be number 9 of 22. This line, however, was not 22 people long. It was at least 50 people, half of which would go home with nothing in their hands. So we had walked in that Best Buy 12:30 a.m. and we purchased that Xbox One. I got home that night and I played it for 9 hours straight until 9 a.m. the next day, Friday. And I still want to say it's one of the greatest experiences of my young life. We will now look at the Web 2.0. Web 2.0 is described in the textbook as the web-based media that have multi-directional audience-generated communications a reality, giving citizens the opportunity to join the party as producers rather than merely consumers. The top-down tyranny of the media has been effectively changed. Okay, now for myself to talk. I know those are quite hard to understand sometimes. The Web 2.0 environment has profoundly changed the everyday interactions people have with media today. We are no longer just consumers or passive audiences, but we are becoming an active audience. And this is awesome. We now have the ability to speak our voice, and we could be heard or seen over the screen. This was something that was never seen before. The first Web 2.0 community that I had ever joined was when I joined very, very young. I had joined TeamXbox.com. And this was a fan-made site about everything Xbox. Reviews, previews, editor's choices, active calendars for games, Xbox forums, basically whatever you wanted, this site had. But one of the main stresses is the Xbox forums. This was the first time that I was ever able to talk to people. Well, I guess I was able to talk on Xbox Live, but to talk to people over the TVs, over the computer screen. And we talked about games, and in the forums we would talk about games and Xbox Lives, and I was able to find friends, well, Xbox Live friends, that we would play games together. I was able to ask them questions and stuff about games or anything at all. It was great. But Team Xbox was the first time I had ever introduced into Producers with an S. Please, that is very important. We will now go into the death of Team Xbox, one of my beloved sites. This is where hegemony directly comes in. Throughout this course, we've seen underlying presence of hegemony. Hegemony was seen when IGN, this big gaming review website, came out and bought and changed Team Xbox forever. IGN is the biggest review site ever. It's probably the most well-known in the world and is the most trusted, and reviewers that work for IGN, they've made it in the reviewing world. You're set. I know, well, I've followed some reviewers and I've seen them work their way up the ladder. It's funny that I say that. Anyways, once IGN had bought out the site, we'd seen drastic change on Team Xbox. No longer was this site a site for reviews, previews, editors' picks, the active calendar, but it was strictly fan forums. IGN had purposely removed previews, reviews, and stuff, destroying the site. They did this so that now all the Xbox fanboys like myself would go to IGN for reviews instead of going to their favorite site, Team Xbox. Because of this, I've always kind of hated IGN, I guess you could say. They ruined something I love. You have to understand where I'm coming from. We will now go into Producers with an S. Producers. You can check it on the slide, but just want to make sure, in case you're just watching this video. Producers is defined in the reading as the merging of the producer and the consumer in an interactive environment. In quotes, this is not in the reading, but this is what I put, the Web 2.0. has been widely embraced as a representing an entirely new way of seeing the media audience. It is important the media audience. That is the textbook definition. It is important to note that producers can dramatically change the media world and are very powerful audience member muscles. You know what I mean? Anyway, so this is how the textbook describes them. The textbook describes them as the online fan communities and producers have the ability to produce unified centers of resistance to influence the global industry of cultural production. In my words, I believe that says the producers have the ability to produce ideologies that can go directly against the influence of the global industry of cultural production. So when they produce things, what they produce goes against the ideology of the company. So thank you. So for the first time, with producers, we for the first time saw a cultural shift of power from where the fans were finally able to merge together on the Web 2.0 to create large communities that congregated resources, ideas that would shape their own opinions on things and common interests. There are good and bad things about producers. A bad is that marketers face a never before seen challenge. Customers will be less interested in consuming their brands and more interested in consuming stuff that's made from the heart. People put their real time into this. Why would you buy something commercialized? But sorry, that's what this is all about. The good is at the same time, marketers discover new areas of the market, research, products, designs, placements, promotions. Maybe they've never seen this before, but the producer has. Yeah. So Team Xbox was the first time I had ever seen producers. Like I said earlier, this was a clear reason behind it. Taken directly from the textbook, the producer phenomenon is specific in the Web 2.0 environment, representing the collaborative and continuous building and extending of existing content in the pursuit of further improvement. Okay, now the producers in the Xbox community. There's been many kinds of producers in the Xbox community, seen through hacking of the Xbox, so that you could burn disks directly to the hard drive, hacking of the game controller, so you could have secret buttons when you play, or auto buttons, reconfiguration of buttons on the controller, just wild stuff that they can do. And the hacking of the Xbox 360 to become a PC. This was done by Ben Heck, who took an Xbox 360 and literally made this thing into a PC, or made this thing into a laptop, a gaming laptop, which was the first time I had ever saw that, and it blew my mind. Anyways, so here we go. So how do these producers go against the ideology of Xbox? Hacking of an Xbox so that you can burn games onto the hard drive goes directly against the consumerism and capitalism of gaming. Xbox doesn't make money off the sales of their systems, but they rather make sales off the games instead. Example is that only $28 is made off every Xbox One system sold, but however the system costs the consumer, myself, $499. I just want to say that I had an original modded Xbox where I could download games directly to the hard drive. I must have had at least 20 games on there, and if you do 20 times 60, you get the idea. The hacking of the Xbox to turn it into a PC or gaming laptop, this completely goes against the ideology of Xbox as a gaming console meant for your living room. The Xbox was designed for you to play with a controller sitting 5 to 10 feet away from the TV. Changing this goes against Microsoft's ideology of how they want this system to be played. This also changes the ideology of console gaming, which is why you buy the Xbox 360, because it is a console. If Microsoft wanted to make an Xbox PC, they would have. They are one of the companies that brought the computer to the home. The hacking of the controllers goes against the ideology of the games. This is not the way the designer and the producer envisioned the game when they designed it. You have a game when the games are meant to be played a certain way, and when you have a controller that can play it for you, you're not playing it the way it's supposed to be played. These controllers can have auto locks, auto drop shots, so you'll be firing and you can fall by it, and the guy will go down on the ground by himself. Automatic firing of weapons, so if someone walks in front of you, you shoot them. Automatic centering of guns, so your gun will automatically go to the center of the screen. This list is unlimited. However, there's a couple things that I didn't like about this article, but one contradiction I had is the Van Dyck's rule of thumb. Overall, I enjoyed this article, but this part bothered me. Out of 99 people, only 10 would interact by commenting, 89 would not. But when he says this, there's many, many ways to interact with something. There's liking it on Facebook, following it on Twitter, liking it in Google Plus. How do you know how they interacted? Do you know that they interacted later in life? Do you know that they came back? I just don't think that that was very right. Or I don't think that that was right. When it came to my circle of friends, and I guess this is different for everyone, I found that whenever my friends find something, they have a very high level of engagement. So when we find a new DJ or emerging artist, we'll go like their SoundCloud, their Facebook, we'll follow them on Twitter, we'll follow them on Instagram, we'll retweet their sets, and we will comment on how they make us feel just to help other people find them. Anyways, now we will go on to our questions, which we have no time for. Enjoy.